Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace.
And I'm Blake.
Let me go ahead and again, if you're watching us on YouTube, you'll see that we do have the little bit of a different look now when we go some cool graphics or whatever that I've put together, and it allows us to share the book and little fancier, I guess we'll say, than it looked previously when we were just doing Zoom. So when we left you guys last, it was Spawn number 68, so we're going to be talking about Spawn number 69 on this episode. You should be able to see it now on your screen if you're checking us out on YouTube. Interesting cover. You see Sam and Twitch there, and they have Spawn kind of draped between them. A headless Spawn, because in the last issue, and I'll go ahead and check out the recap in the front cover, in the last issue that we read, Spawn had been killed. He had his head blown off. And Cagliostro showed up in the back of Sam and Twitch's car and basically said, hey, you need to go and find Spawn. He really needs your help. And so they headed over there. They weren't really sure, where to find Spawn, and that's where this issue picks up. And we also learned that the group that of homeless that were, I don't want to say evil, but they were more militant, I guess we'll say. They were more active in like knocking over liquor stores and mugging people and this and that. And they got in a bit of a disagreement with some of the other homeless that Spawn's more close to, like Bobby and Bootsy and those kind of guys. And their boss is actually the Freak. He's the one that we saw way back, I think in the late 20s, if I'm not mistaken. And he's the one that's kind of been spurring these guys on to do bad shit, basically. I mean, the Freak is just that. He's a freak. And so he's the one that's been kind of goading these guys. And why Spawn was able to be killed, why his head was literally blown off, we're unsure of. So that's where this issue picks up. We see Sam and Twitch there, and they're tearing through the alleys of Rat City, trying to figure out where Spawn is at. Again, this is all at the order of Cagliostro. Not at the order, but I mean the reason they're doing it, the reason they're aware of what's going on, is because of Cagliostro, who they've had run-ins with before, who seems to just magically appear in the back of their crime mobile, their 55 Chevy, at will, and then gives them some information and then disappears. So they're not necessarily happy to be in Rat City, but they do know that, I mean, they feel a connection with Spawn. The big bombshell that Cagliostro dropped a few issues ago was how they are knights of Spawn is their king. They owe their loyalty to Spawn and whatnot, and they didn't. Sam and Twitch, especially Sam, Detective Burke, he kind of pushed back on that a little bit. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? But I think even Sam is smart enough to know. I mean, Twitch is more the brains of the operation, but even Sam is smart enough to know that there's something to that, because everywhere they turn, they keep running into cases that end up involving Spawn, end up involving Al Simmons in some way. So as they go tearing through these alleys looking for it, they do come across his body. It's a beautiful double-page spread there from Great Capullo. And Spawn has been strung up by the Freak and his minions, and yeah, there he is, headless. So they're pretty shocked. I mean, they've seen Spawn before, much like we saw Spawn before, as this immortal, unkillable being. So it's not just that they come across Spawn's body and think, wow, he's jacked up. There's some fear that they feel there, because it's like, well, if Spawn is this powerful as we know him to be, and something was able to kill Spawn and tear his head off, blow his head off, whatever, how much more dangerous is that thing than Spawn himself? So they're pretty worried. And it's not really clear to me. It is kind of interesting that it's like, okay, so you come across Spawn's body, Cagliostro told you Spawn needs your help. Okay, you come across a headless body, at what point do you say, well, I don't know what kind of help we can give, and just kind of turn around and walk away? You know what I mean? That's not what they do, and we'll see that in a second. But before we get there, we're going to actually run into Cagliostro, and he's talking to Bootsy, and this is really telling, and it reveals something about Bootsy that we didn't know before. Cagliostro's talking to Bootsy. He's like, it's ironic, right? This war that we've had right under our noses about who's really in control of human destiny, and neither of our masters really seems to be able to, win this battle, win this skirmish. And Bootsy kind of plays dumb. He's like, what are you talking about? And Cagliostro's like, spare me your innocent act. Now, we did see Bobby and the rest of the guys, when they were going to confront the guys that took out Spawn, Bootsy's like, I can't be involved. And Bobby actually got pretty mad at Bootsy. Like, after everything Spawn's done for you, you say you can't get involved. And it's like, there's a part of Bootsy that, he doesn't come across as cowardly, but there's something about him where he says, I can't get involved. And we find out why that is right here. And basically, Cogs is insinuating that Bootsy is an agent of heaven. And Bootsy doesn't deny it. In fact, he says, I won't play innocent, but I still have to stick to my orders. And Cagliostro's like, those orders are to watch but not interfere. And Bootsy talks about, and this is something that's really big in Catholicism, and I'm speaking from experience, having gone to Catholic school, he starts talking about self-determination and free will. And he's like, my job is to report, that's the mandate, to give mankind free will. We can perform miracles and allow them to see things that should help convince them to believe, but I can't directly interfere. And so he kind of gets upset when Cagliostro is sort of insinuating that he's not doing anything. And Bootsy does say, though, yeah, and we have performed miracles to try to get people to leave. What's your side done? And Cog's like, well, I didn't know heaven was keeping score, but I guess you need to try to justify your actions when it suits you. He's like, I'm sorry that we can't count on you to do more than, a random miracle here or there. Good night. And he goes walking away. So it's a pretty big surprise to find out that all along Bootsy knows more about Spawn than Spawn himself does, because Bootsy apparently is an agent of heaven. So meanwhile, back in the alley where Spawn was strung up, they managed to pull out the pieces of rebar that were pinning his body to the wall, and of course his body falls, and we're reminded once again of how heavy he is, the 400 pounds. They sort of used the chains from his costume to kind of hoist him up onto Twitch's back, but then Sam kind of loses his grip, and Twitch is almost smashed. Again, we're reminded how heavy he is. This body of necro flesh weighs over 400 pounds, and so Sam's able to lift it up and kind of allow Twitch to squirm out from underneath, and they get him up, and they're kind of moving him. And again, I have to wonder, and maybe you have some idea, Blake, like, where exactly you think you're taking this guy? His head has been blown off. His body clearly is not a human body, because there's no way it would weigh that much. And I've moved my share, not of dead bodies, but of people that were like completely passed out, like drunk or what have you, because when you sleep, your body, as deep as asleep as you can possibly think, your body still, like, you still have muscle tone, and you're bearing up some of your own weight a little bit. When it's a dead body or somebody who's like completely passed out drunk, man, you'd be surprised how much heavier they feel than when they're not. And it's not like the weight is all in one spot either. The weight's kind of, it's awkward. Like picking somebody up is awkward a lot of times. So I can't imagine trying to lift up this 400-pound body. So where the heck exactly do they think they're taking him? Just throw him in the car and hope Cog shows up?
So Sam and Twitch aren't like completely on board with being Spawn's knights quite yet. You mentioned before how Sam is very hesitant to kind of, like take on this kind of a title or responsibility. They still sort of think that, okay, he's got some powers and stuff, and he's crazy durable, but he's just a guy doing stuff in the alleys, and he's involved in all these cases and whatever. So they're not thinking that he's some kind of like holy avenger or like a real superhero. They just know that he's involved in these cases, and he's very suspicious and spooky and stuff. So when a guy just appears at the back of your car, telling you, oh yeah, and by the way, you're also that guy's like holy avenger knights. You're his eyes and ears and his hands in the real world. It's like, uh-huh, sure we are, got it. So they're kind of like barging into the situation, not even really knowing fully what they're getting into. Cog just told them, Spawn needs your help, go help him. And so they find his headless body in the alley, strung up and crucified with his own chains. I don't know what's going through their heads. Like, he doesn't have a head. Like what do they think they're doing? Like, are they trying to move him out of the alleys and then call an ambulance or something? Like, they can see and mention that he looks like he's made of green jello. So, they're starting to sort of like, oh, he's not like fully human, is he? Okay. I just don't know exactly what their thought process is. It's like, okay, we're helping him off this wall and out of this alley.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that I can...
goal.
Yeah, the only thing I can think is maybe they're worried that the people that basically crucified him or attached him to the wall will come back and mutilate his body more. But, I mean, he's already dead, so he can't be more dead. So, yeah, anyway. And again, we don't even understand...
Story forward.
Yeah, and we don't even understand at this point why he was able to be killed. So, anyway, as they're trying to drag his body back to their car, I guess, Bobby and the rest of Spawn's homeless friends show up, and they say, hey, you drop out right now, back away slowly, and one of the guys is like, it's true, they did blow his head off, we didn't think it was possible, and Bobby yells at them, calls them punks, and says they're going to take care of him. They've got some weapons in terms of blunt instruments and whatnot, but Sam and Twitch are armed, and Twitch is an expert marksman. So they pull out their guns and take aim, and then the group that actually killed Spawn show up as well. These are the guys that Bobby and his group are really there to fight. They didn't know. They just happened upon Sam and Twitch with Spawn's body and made an assumption. But when this other group shows up, they're like, okay, this place belongs to us now. So we took out your tough guy hero, and he's not here to save you now. So in a few minutes, we're going to take you out too. So now the group that Bobby's in realizes, okay, these are the guys that took out Spawn, and Sam and Twitch are sort of caught in the middle, and they're saying, okay, you guys all need to stand down. We don't need to have some big gang fight right here. Twitch is like, freeze, all of you. And Bobby's like, look, we don't know who you guys are, but this is not your fight, so just get out of here before you get hurt. But Twitch is not about to let that happen. He's like, look, we've got guns, you don't. You guys all need to put down your weapons, and we'll figure this out. So I guess the enemy of my enemy is my friend in a lot of ways. And so it's like the two groups are going to team up to take out Sam and Twitch so they can be left alone to decide who's really going to be in charge of Rat City. So they turn as one group, and they're about to attack Sam and Twitch when Twitch hits the poster, which, I mean, this is like the 90s, right? And yet somehow there's still a Richard Nixon poster hanging up in the house. And Sam shoots him in the forehead and says, okay, next guy that makes a move gets a repeat performance. So he does actually get the guys, both groups of guys, to stand down. They're facing the wall. Sam Burke is frisking them, looking for weapons. When the freak shows up, he holds a knife to Twitch's throat and has a bit of the upper hand. He's like, all right, officers, assuming that they're police, even though they're no longer employed by the New York Police Department. It's like, as much as I want to uphold the law, the fact is you don't really give a rat's ass about any of us, right? So you're all just losers, right? Isn't that what you just called us? So, we have the upper hand now. Let everybody go. And Sam tries to call his bluff, saying, do whatever you want to him. You'll still die. So, you might want to think about letting him go. And unfortunately, the freak is insane, so you're not going to be able to reason with him, right? And he's like, look into my eyes and tell me which one of us is bluffing, detective. And so Sam ends up having to drop his weapon because he realizes, yeah, the Freak is crazy, and the Freak really will kill Twitch, even if it means that Sam kills the Freak, a few seconds later. So he goes ahead and drops his gun, but unbeknownst to anybody, and this is where we find out how Spawn was able to be killed, there is a part of Rat City, there's a part of the alleys of Rat City that are actually what's called a dead zone. It's a little piece of heaven on earth, for lack of a better way to put it, where if Spawn enters that territory, he doesn't have his powers, right? Hell doesn't have any influence over that little pocket, that little dead zone, which Sam and Twitch apparently moved Spawn just enough to get him out of that dead zone. Now, the dead zone will be referenced more in this issue and in the few subsequent issues that follow. And man, it's convenient. I would really like to see a map of the alley and where the dead zone is, because so he just happened to be in the dead zone when these guys attacked him and were able to blow his head off, and they transported him some distance and pinned him up against the wall, and that also just happened to be in the dead zone. And then Sam and Twitch struggle to drag him just a few feet, but just those few feet are enough to get him out of the dead zone. But then later we'll see that he goes back in the dead zone when he fights another new character that's coming up in a couple of issues. So it's like, man, this idea of the dead zone is interesting, but it's also super convenient for McFarlane to have him say, oh, he was in the dead zone. Oh, he moves a couple feet to the right. He's no longer in the dead zone. It's like, it's a little ex deus machina. I'll just leave it at that. So we do see the worms, we see the flies, we see the maggots, we see all those creatures that are able to give Spawn power and the ability to heal. And they do indeed heal him, and he rises again on the last page there. And it's a great image with his eyes glowing. So I guess the necroplasm regenerated his head. So his eyes are glowing there, and there's some smoke or steam or something coming off his body where the bullet holes have healed up as well. And you see that look of terror in on the face of the Freak in the reflection on the knife, which is a really, really great touch from McFarlane. So, not a whole ton of action in this one. Spawn spends the entire issue dead except for the last page, and we do obviously get a little bit of like a tease of action of this war, this gang war that's gonna almost a gang civil war when you think about it, because they're all homeless guys. And they're looking to tear each other's heads off, and then also the reveal of Bootsy being an agent of heaven, which I think is a pretty big deal. So a bit of a setup issue, a bit of a transition issue, but there are some important aspects to this issue. Obviously this thought or concept of the dead zone is very important, at least in a lot of the issues that follow this one, at least for a little while anyway. I don't know how long it's part of the story. And then, that revelation for Bootsy and the return of the Freak, which he's not really a character I really enjoy, to be honest with you. In a way that the Violator is interesting as a character because he's this agent of chaos and is super unpredictable. The Freak is kind of the same thing, but I don't know. Maybe that's why I don't care about the Freak, because, I already have the Violator to fill that role. Why do I need another really unpredictable character, one that used to be human? I don't know, his motivations. I can understand the Violator's motivations, right? Like, he wants to make Spawn look bad, so he feels that as a natural native denizen of hell, him and his brothers should be in charge of Hell's armies. Like, I can understand that motivation, even if it's misguided. The Freak, it's like a true agent of chaos, because we don't even have reasons for. We don't know his origin, really.
Yeah.
And
we did get an origin of sorts for him back when he was first introduced in those
with
issues.
With the psychiatrist, right?
Yeah, Dr. Delirium.
Right.
And then he convinces Spawn to help him break in, and then kill Dr. Delirium and his scientists and stuff. And he was experimented on.
Oh, that's right. He was. Yeah, he was. Yeah,
and that's
right.
Kind of what took his sanity was. Before he had like a wife and kids, and then they took him and experimented on him a bunch, and he basically went crazy, like full on crazy. And then he got away from them or something, and Dr. Delirium killed his family. It's a very Frank Castle kind of a story, and then the Freak swears vengeance against Dr. Delirium, and it's all he's almost like an anti-hero, but he's always played like he's a villain, and he's very antagonistic and villainy in his kind of approach to everything. He's hyper violent and unpredictable, like you said. He does fill a very similar role to the Violator, and that's one of the reasons that he also doesn't track with me. I wish I had a differing opinion so we could have some more like commentary on it, but I agree with you. Like he's just okay. Like I think he does a really good job here. If they always played him as this kind of crazy, gang boss kind of a guy in the background, like pulling strings and stuff, I think that would have been really cool to see happen over like a long period of time. But he just kind of like pops out of the blue. It's like, oh, I'm in charge of these homeless people now. It's like, since when?
Yeah, I mean,
like,
he got...
The last time we saw you was like 30 issues ago.
Yeah, he got what he wanted in terms of he wanted his revenge, and he did get it. And so now it's like...
Had other plans for Spawn at the end of that issue. Something about Spawn enticed him. So it was like, okay, so maybe he's going to have some kind of long game to like get Spawn's powers or something. And there was some kind of like setup for that when one of his henchmen brought him the bag of necroplasm, but then that kind of doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah, and the other thing is, and this is no slight against Capullo's art, I don't care for his look either. I don't find his giant mop of hair, I don't even know what to call it. It's like Alan Moore run amok.
Yeah.
I don't find it to be a compelling or interesting visual design either. That being said, there is a lot of detail in this issue from Capullo, being that it's in the alley. We do have a few panels here and there that are sort of light on the backgrounds, but we get plenty of panels where, we're getting the bats, we're getting the flies, we're getting the rats, we're getting the maggots, we're getting the cracked brick of the building. We're getting the facial expressions that are very maniacal when it comes to the Freak, but in terms of Sam and Twitch are much more emotive, and a lot of the homeless guys, just this anger, this animosity that they feel toward each other, which is depicted very well with the facial expression. So I have a feeling this is one of those issues that probably took McFarlane quite a while, or Capullo, rather, well, both of them really. And that does remind me, I didn't actually give the credit. So yeah, McFarlane's story, Greg Capullo on pencils, inks by McFarlane and Chance Wolfe, Tom Orzechowski on letters, and Brian Haberlin and Dan Kemp on letters. So yeah, it must have taken Capullo quite a while, because there are a couple of pages where he draws every brick, whether it's the bricks on the pavement that they're running over, or the buildings that they're of Rat City that they're running between. That being Sam and Twitch, you can see it on the screen there. That's a lot of detail. So when he does go a little light on backgrounds, just putting like smoke or steam or whatnot, I don't necessarily mind it. You look at that double page spread where Spawn is decapitated. Again, you got a ton of bricks, you got chains, you got ropes, you got rusted pipes, and a lot of shadow, trench coats that Sam and Twitch are wearing that have all sorts of detail on them. So yeah, this is fantastic work from Capullo. And just recently, within the last 3 or 4 years, I think might have been when we did an episode on Best Batman Artist, I talked about Capullo. He was on that list and specifically called out his ability to show emotion in faces, which, man, he's up there with Kevin Maguire in my mind for most emotive faces on characters. So fantastic work, especially that double page spread when Sam and Twitch discover Spawn's headless body, and then that last page when Spawn is risen again, and again, I'll point out one more time that reflection of the Freak's surprise on that knife blade is fantastic. So,
Yeah.
Anything else to add about this issue, Blake?
Um, One of my favorite panels in this particular issue is the panel that shows the two groups of homeless people about to do battle, and tensions are at an all-time high. But then you've got these two cops here, and like you had mentioned, they have a shared enemy. Like the homeless people, and it was mentioned. It's been mentioned several times in the last several issues where they get pushed around and bullied by the police. They're never able to settle in one place for too long. They're constantly harassed by the police, and so even though these two opposing homeless groups are about to go at each other and kill each other, they would rather set that problem aside for a moment so they can take care of these two cops because they just don't like him. And just like the build up to that, all of that tension, all of the screaming, all of that emotion. Like, we especially know how Bobby feels. We've been seeing his reaction very, very closely. He is livid and will kill anyone in his path because he truly cares about Al. And he's willing to set all of that on the back burner just for a moment to redirect all of that anger towards these cops. And just, there isn't a ton of detail on the panel itself, but what is there is just, it's very emotive. Every single homeless person's face is just like, oh no, you misunderstand the situation. We will stop this for a moment to come after you. And one of the homeless people is like, we're not afraid of you.
Yeah,
it's a really good panel. I get a lot of joy out of it.
Yeah, it's a great point because, at this point, what do these guys have to lose? You know what I mean? Like, why would they be afraid of the cops? They're homeless. A lot of these guys are on their last chance. So it's a good point. And it also goes to why they are so angry and have the ability to lash out and be so violent. I mean, they have nothing to lose, and they feel like they've been backed into a corner. So there's nothing more dangerous than somebody who feels like they got nothing left to lose, and they feel trapped. They're going to lash out for sure. So yeah, it's very very understandable. So anyway, that's going to do it for this issue number 69, everybody. We're going to say thanks for listening. Thanks for watching if you're checking us out on YouTube. And we're going to record another episode right now, so you won't get it until tomorrow, but as you're listening to this. But yeah, 2 days in a row. It's been a while. So we're glad to be back, and hopefully we won't miss any more days, knock on wood. So we appreciate everybody listening and joining. Don't forget to check out Blake's reading order so you know what's coming up next. We're on a little bit of a run for the regular series right now, so I think we're going to do up through like 74 or 76 or so. So if you just collect the regular series, you'll definitely want to join us for the next few days. So again, thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll talk to you next time.
Later.